A good Monday afternoon to you. Welcome on in to Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne in Pittsburgh today. And Claibs, you can't escape the rain to start the second half of the Cardinal season.
I don't know what's going on with this rain, man. We had a lot in Atlanta. I mean, that first day we got rained out, it was coming down in buckets. Then it started raining on Saturday. We had a little bit on Sunday, and now we're in Pittsburgh, and it was dry as a bone last night. Now open up the curtains, and it's storming right now. So I don't know what impact it'll have on the game tonight, but we are weather-driven at this point. But here's something I would suggest. You know, this day-night doubleheader makeup, and we've gone through 5 of them now.
Yeah.
You know, I think I know why they do it, because they can reel in more concession money. Okay. And that's really what this is all about. You know, 2 different gates, but they need to narrow the gap between the games. Now, some will say, well, they have to clean up the ballpark, and I understand that. So in that situation, you have to be able to find enough people from a cleanup crew standpoint and a restocking standpoint to make sure you can condense the time that people are at the ballpark. Or even have an earlier start. Let's say if we have a game, if this thing pops off and we can't play tomorrow, play tonight, which I'm hoping not. Let's make the games closer to each other. You know, maybe you play it 2 and 6. You know, because the extra inning factor doesn't come into play like it used to.
Right. Are the players fine with that, or the players want a nice 3
They
hour
want to
break
just play.
between?
No, they want to play. They want to play. And
they want to get there, get it over with.
Yeah,
In some cases too. Yeah.
I was talking to the grounds crew guy yesterday. They spent 17 hours at the ballpark when we had the rain and getting the fields ready and everything. And I'm not saying players stay there that long, but let's say you're on the noon bus or the 1 o'clock bus and you're not leaving until 11 o'clock at night, you know, and you're doing a lot of sitting around doing nothing. There's got to be a better method. And as weather is affecting more games this season, Major League Baseball maybe needs to step back and assess how they evaluate, because MLB now decides on whether you play or not. This is not a local thing anymore. So with that said, they've got to come up with a more practical way to A, keep the fans engaged, B, keep the players prepared, and C, get the game in. Because with the schedule now, remember, we're playing game 100 today.
Right.
Okay, so we only have 62 more. So you don't have as much of a window for makeup games and off days. And, you know, if you have too many, you know, if you have the off days, you know, and then Players Association will say, well, wait a minute, you know, we're playing too many games in a row. And so there's so many things that go into it, which I go back to my original point that every week, with the exception of 6 games, everybody else should be off. You're either making up a game that day or you're having a scheduled off day. That way you don't back things up too much.
I am looking at the MLB schedule right now just to kind of overlook all of the schedule for the entire season. As you mentioned earlier, Cardinals have already had 5 doubleheaders this year. Trying to see if there's any team that's come close to that with them. I see the Mets on here a couple times, Minnesota as well. I'd have to go through and actually count to see where they are, but 5 does seem to be quite a bit when there's only been about maybe 25, 30 total doubleheaders the entire season so far. So the Cardinals have played
Well, and maybe it's just because of the area we live in. We're getting a lot of rain right now, but the weather has become more of impactful on the game of baseball now that it's been in a long, long time. Whether it's inclement in the beginning of the season, we've been lucky so far in postseason that we haven't had any snow outs or cold outs or anything along that line, but it's coming. And you have to be a little bit more practical in how you assess this thing and what the contention plans are. And right now, I think we're kind of in a holding pattern on what really is feasible.
I actually just counted 2. There have been 18 doubleheaders in baseball the entire season. Cardinals have played in 5 of those.
Yeah,
this year.
Well, there was 1 year we played in we had 13 of them in one season.
Were those scheduled or
no? Hell no.
None
This
of
is
those are scheduled?
no.
When's
This
the last time they start? Because I know this year, like in the past few years, they've had like one in all of baseball, like sprinkled into a schedule. When's the
yeah.
last time they actually stopped
I
scheduling a
can't
doubleheader?
remember. It'd have to be. You had to go back to the 70s.
Okay.
But I believe it was 87. I think we played like 13 doubleheaders, or it was 85. One of those years. It was crazy. I mean, we were playing back to back doubleheaders at one point.
Oof. And that would there weren't rules in place then for 27th men or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a And thank goodness for that, especially the way you use bullpens. If you didn't have that, I think you'd have some teams in big, big trouble.
Yeah. Well, Cardinals over the weekend, they had the doubleheader on Saturday, split that one on Sunday, took 2 of 3 from the Braves, who are still the first wild card team by 2.5 games. But Braves are starting to struggle a lot health wise, losing Ozzy Albies right now for the next 8 weeks. They've lost their 2 best players on the season in Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna.
Throw
They,
in Michael Harris, the center
yeah,
fielder.
yeah,
Yeah.
they have lost a lot of big names
And
this
Max Free
year.
just went back on the IL.
Oof. Yeah, they are. They're struggling right now, but still hanging on to a playoff spot.
Well, I think they're catchable as far as the first spot is concerned because of the injuries that you just mentioned, as I think the Milwaukee Brewers are catchable as far as the division is concerned. Um, it's amazing how some teams got off to such great starts. You think about Seattle, and now they're looking up. You think about Atlanta, and then all of a sudden they ran into that Philadelphia buzzsaw. And, Philadelphia had a couple of injuries, and they seemed like they were playing better. And then you have Milwaukee, who got off to a tremendous start, and you have to tip your cap to them. But they have been a team that has faded in the second half. And it's going to be interesting to see what moves they make to shore their team up. You and I were talking before we went on. I don't know if there are enough good players around to fill the needs of the teams that are looking for help.
As far as trades go,
Yeah, I don't really think so.
I mean, you look at the names that are out there. You look at the top names that are kind of being floated out that you would consider to be a blockbuster trade. And the one that surprises me, and the Cardinals aren't in as I've seen, as far as I've seen so far, but the one name that I've seen that surprised me a lot is Tariq Skubal, the pitcher for the Detroit
Yeah.
Tigers, who very well could be the AL Cy Young winner right now. Probably should have been the starter for the All-Star game for them. Has the best numbers, I think, in the American League. And to think that the Tigers would entertain offers to trade him, and I know it's like the Dodgers and the Orioles are the teams that are after it. That is, I don't
I don't I
understand that
don't
at all.
buy it. I don't
No,
buy it. I think that what we have now, you can go on the internet, and there's always somebody with some preposterous trade proposal, and not having talked to anyone. This is all fantasy baseball geeks that what if, and it's always one that's going to benefit their team in some way, shape, or form. So I think for me, 90% of the things that you read are untrue and have never been discussed. There's 10% that may have some legs to it, but I just think this is a lot of just BS by a lot of people who have nothing else better to do.
and it could just be a case of one side. I mean, remember a few years ago when all the rumors started about Nolan Arenado to the Dodgers, the Cardinals
It
won.
was a great
That
example.
was it was because the Dodgers said, "Hey, we'd really like Nolan Arenado." So
Yeah,
the
who
rumors
wouldn't?
started, and yeah, the Cardinals were like, "All right, that's hey, cool, we have him." Like
Yeah, yeah. I
he's
just
not
think,
going anywhere.
yeah, I just think that you just have to really be careful in what you read. And I give you a good example. There are a lot of excuse me credible writers. You have Buster Olney, you have Bob Nightingale. I gave a list of guys. How often do you see those guys get involved in that kind of stuff? Okay. How often do you see, Buster or Bob or any of those guys start to circulate rumors? Ken Rosenthal, they don't do that kind of stuff. Now,
When
there's
it
some
gets
other
into
guys.
serious
There are other
negotiations,
guys
they
who
jump in.
will
Yeah.
who will float out names because they are in the back pocket of an agent, and they're trying to get their guy moved, so they give it to him, and he floats it out there, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden we have a discussion. But the credible ones who are not bought and sold by agents, they don't get caught up in that stuff.
It's funny you mentioned Nightingale because actually, yeah, the other day he did throw a name out there, but it's not by no means is a blockbuster name. So maybe you take it with a little more consideration. Bob Nightingale writing that the Cardinals have strong interest in right-handed pitcher Eric Fetty of the Chicago White Sox. It's no secret that every single person in the White Sox organization, I think, is tradable at this point with how
Yeah,
bad they are currently on another 7-game losing streak. But it's the first name out there. It's a guy who pitched for the Nationals, was on their roster when they won the World Series but didn't pitch, and then spent some time in Korea, and now he's back with the White Sox. So it's just a name that in no ways, if the Cardinals make that move, are you going to think they're World Series contenders if they go get
yeah.
it in
You're not printing
the car?
tickets,
Yeah,
play World Series tickets because you pick him up.
right.
Now, if you talk about the other guy they have in the rotation,
Garrett Crochet.
Crochet.
Yeah.
Now that's a whole different conversation because he's a really good player, and I told you what I think the needs are. They need a front end starter, they need a right handed bat, and they need another guy with legitimate closing experience in the bullpen. You need those three things if you really want to break through. And I know right now people will say, "Well, the bullpen's lights out." Yeah, we got 62 games to go, man. And, Ali has done a masterful job in maintaining a bullpen. But at some point, somebody's going to hit a wall. At some point, we're going to look at some guys who pitch more innings than they've ever pitched in their lives before we get into postseason. So you better have a little extra muscle back there if you want to really continue to be as consistent as you've been with your bullpen.
And now you have two of those guys that you at one point this year thought were going to be key bullpen arms in Andre Palante and Matthew Libator, who are being asked to eat a lot more innings as starters, too.
Yeah, they have. And you know what? They've done a really good job at that, which brings me to this. I don't know if you or Rammer have a discussion about this, but isn't this tonight with Palante starting that you use two pitchers, Palante and Libator?
Cardinals haven't named a starter yet for Wednesday. So I don't know if you've heard,
Yeah.
anything as far as who they're planning on starting on Wednesday, but that's an idea that might be in the cards based off of what happens in tonight's game. If Palante goes out there and gives you 5 or 6 innings that we've seen him do a couple times since he's become a starter, then maybe you move Libator to that Wednesday start.
Yeah. Or you
And
might
you
do
give
this.
everybody a day back.
Yeah. Or you might do something along the line where you have just about everybody available to you today, where maybe it's Palante followed by John King or Jojo Romero, who've yet to pitch. And they need some innings. We have some guys that haven't pitched in like 16 days.
Yeah.
So you really have some options, and I'm anxious to talk to him about it later today on what direction he's going to go. Now, he may not give us the entire game plan, which I understand, but he does have options that will really be something that you're going to look at down the road as well on how you use certain guys out of the bullpen.
For a team that is probably looking at a starting pitcher to add at the trade deadline, and the trade deadline being 10 days away at this point, now seems to be about that time. If you're going to make a move, go out there and get one of these guys and get an extra start or two out of them for your club this year. If you think he's going to be that impactful of an arm, go out and have him win 2 more games for you this season.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've said this on countless occasions this season. When I bring up being proactive, the pushback is always two things. Well, they're going to want this guy and that guy, or we're going to have to overpay. My response is this: how are you overpaying? Because if that person was that good, he'd be on your ball club now helping you win.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not doing that. So if you're trying to win now, then be willing to pay the price for it. And I know there may be some people gun shy because you've moved some players in the past that have turned out to have a pretty good run with another organization. But you know what? For every one of those that you see, I can show you a Goldschmidt trade. I can show you an Arenado trade. I can show you different acquisitions that have been more positive than a one or two that you may have missed on, because everyone misses.
Right.
Every general manager has missed on certain deals that they made they wish they could have back. You cannot be gun shy. You have to be proactive here.
I mean, look how long it took us. And, well, I guess not long, 3 years. You look back at the Juan Soto trade, and now there are folks that would look at the Nationals and say that they won the Juan Soto trade after 2-3 seasons of that.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
And
And now they have made postseason play, but I think everybody will tell you they really like the direction of
right,
where they're going. When you look at James Wood, you look at C.J. Abrams, you look at some of those other young players that they were able to acquire. They're going to be a contending team. Problem is they're in a division that's already stacked with Philadelphia and Atlanta. The Mets look like they have some life in them. It's going to be a competitive division, but from a talent standpoint, they certainly profited off that deal.
you mentioned Garrett Crochet. Where if you want to start talking trade names, if you want to start talking big time acquisitions, kind of get your thoughts on a few of the big names out there. One name that Rammer and I kind of threw around on Friday, as far as going out there and getting a top of the line starter. What are your thoughts on a guy like Nathan Eovaldi out of the from the Rangers? Currently 7.5 games back right now of a wild card spot.
I think it's a good call, and the Rangers have to make a decision if they're in or not. Okay, because somebody might want to kick the tires on Scherzer as well. Now Scherzer's only going to give you 5 innings, but he's going to pitch. He's rested. And they got a couple other guys that people might have a sneaking interest in. But, as you mentioned, it's 7.5 out. At some point, they've got to pull the trigger as well. Now, Evaldi was a guy that I know we had an interest in a couple of years ago, and it just didn't work out. But I think he's a guy that in this situation, especially with a ground ball pitcher like he is, he can really profit by being in St. Louis.
Yeah, and when he's healthy, that's a guy that has
That's the
shown
key,
that
though.
he is
Can he stay
really,
healthy?
really good in the postseason.
Can he stay healthy? And that's the other concern.
Yeah. You mentioned a guy with closing experience. Are there any names out there that kind of catch your eye?
Well, I tell you, Finnegan's getting a lot of action with Washington, but I think teams are scared to deal with Rizzo because Rizzo's fleeced a couple of people here recently. So he because they're not going to win this year and probably not next year, it's nice to have a closer, but if you're not using him in high leverage situations, it's kind of hard to hold on to him and not get something in return. So he would be a guy that I would have an interest in, but I'd have to think about what the price might be. And I would be one of those that would have a list of people that are untouchable. Okay. It's not going to be a long list, but I'm going to give you a list of people that I want to hold on to, which means you have the pick of the litter of the organization, up to 3 players.
The one thing when you look at the Cardinals right now, it seems like they have a few guys on their team that could use a change of scenery, or at least it's being reported that they would look at giving guys a change of scenery. I know Dylan Carlson's a name at the top of that list that's on your major league roster that you could maybe part ways with to give him a fresh start. I know last week the reports were kind of making the rounds. I think it was Greg Amsinger that kind of started the discussion of moving on from Jordan Walker and whether or not he'd be involved in trades like that. Those are
I would disagree.
I would too.
I would disagree with Greg on Walker. Walker hasn't been around long enough for you to give up on him.
Right.
Dylan Carlson just hasn't been able to stay healthy long enough to really assert himself. He's a good player, but he needs to play. And right now there's some guys in front of him that are having a better year. I don't know what you can get for him if you're looking to move him, but I think you're doing him a favor if you can get him somewhere where he can play.
Yeah. As far as bats go for this team, I know a few weeks ago there was talk of adding a bat that can play center field, play the outfield. How much has this hot streak by Alec Burleson kind of changed direction of what the team might be looking for offensively right now? Because
I think you still want a right-handed bat.
Yeah.
As well as he's played and as well as he's swinging the bat, you still need some right-handed thunder. Now, if Goldschmidt and Arenado start to heat up at the right time, throw in Contreras, now you can probably scare some people. But we haven't seen that yet. So, but you have to have another legitimate bat. And you know what? You probably need a little bit more punch off the bench. You don't really have anything from the right side off the bench. So that's another area of concern.
I mean, if you're moving on from Dylan Carlson, that's your replacement, I guess, on the bench.
It's going to be right-handed.
Because
right-handed bat.
Otherwise, you're walking away from Brandon Crawford or Matt Carpenter on the bench.
Yeah, I mean,
That's really your
yeah,
options.
that's all you have, and I don't think you can play 26 against 23 every night.
No, no, and another setback from Tommy Edman. It's
This
one of
season is probably a wash for him. It's unfortunate. Uh, we never thought it was going to go this far. Think
no.
about it. We learned in October that he had wrist surgery. He'll be ready for spring training. And what do we had July 23rd, and he hasn't even been in AAA long enough to have any sort of success, let alone Double A. So
Yeah.
it's an unfortunate situation.
A few names that have been DFA'd here lately. Whit Merrifield DFA'd by
He found work today, though.
yeah, he just signed with the Braves. If you missed it yesterday, Ozzie Albies, when he left the game yesterday, fractured his left wrist on that play at second base. He is out 8 weeks. They called up a guy. This was a great name. Did you see who they called up to replace Ozzie Albies?
I saw it, but you'd have to remind me.
Nacho
Yeah,
Alvarez.
yeah.
Yeah. So they called up Nacho and they signed Whit Merrifield to hopefully help with their bench. And then Ty France also designated for
Boy, that was a
assignment by
head
the Mariners.
scratcher. I mean,
That's
this
a,
guy a couple of years ago was
he's an
leading the
all-star.
charge for them, and
Yeah.
I know he had the foot injury that really he hadn't recovered from, but his numbers apparently just. But you think about Seattle. What did they do? They fired the bench coach. Within the first 3 months, I think the hitting coach has been let go, and they've made some real hasty changes, and this is the most recent one. And I don't know the young man who's going to replace him, but apparently it's his time. And the thing is, I would have thought you'd have put him on revocable waivers to put him out there to see if anybody had an interest in him. But
Right.
they put him on irrevocable, so they just said bye. And
The
that's a little unusual.
you look at the similarities that Seattle's going through right now with their outfield compared to what the Cardinals have gone through, which God seems like the last 10 years at this point with a rotating door in the outfield because they gave up on Jared Kelenic, their former
Mm-hmm.
first round pick, who's now in the outfield for the Braves. The Rodriguez, Julio Rodriguez, was one of the top players in baseball. It seemed like a year or two ago, and you don't hear anything about him anymore.
Yeah.
He is fallen off too. And now with a guy like Ty France that they're just giving up on, that's a lot of guys. That's a lot of talent and a lot of people that they expected to be huge parts of their future that are no longer there or no longer really doing much.
So here's the question, and this is one I've been throwing around. Is it inability to assess talent, or is it inability to develop talent?
I think it's maybe not so much developing that because the talent obviously developed enough to get to the big league level.
Yeah, but the thing is, you have to make sure that the teaching factors are in place
Right.
well before they get to the big leagues and maintaining that. So
Maintaining, making
there's
the
a miss
adjustments.
somewhere
Yeah.
along the way,
And
and I see that with a lot of teams. I'm not just singling out Seattle, but there are a lot of teams. I mean, you look at Nick Senzel, Cincinnati, Washington let him go. But the word was on him that maybe he wasn't a guy who put enough work into it. The hard part is not getting to the big leagues; it's staying in the big leagues. And some guys think that because they're in the big leagues, they're entitled to be here, and that's not the case.
well, I've had a few people ask me this past weekend about Alec Burleson. I know we already mentioned him, but asking if he's the real deal, asking if this
Yes.
is legit.
Yeah.
And my response to them, he was on the roster all last year. So if there's a book on Alec Burleson, it's out.
Well,
Teams know where the cold spots, where the weak spots are. Alec Burleson has just made the adjustments to become a really good big league hitter.
But remember, he won a batting championship in AAA.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not something that he's. And it's funny, I had him on a pregame show yesterday, and one of the things he talked about is his disdain for strikeouts. He said he never liked striking out, and you have other guys that accept strikeouts, instead of doing something about it. And he's always been a hitter. I think the challenge was he never had a position. He used to be a pitcher, an outfielder, left fielder, right fielder. And remember when he first came up, his position was batter's box because he didn't have one. He made himself into a more accomplished defender where you can put him in a game and he's going to make plays for you. But the bat has always been there. And throw in the fact that he's hitting behind Mason Wynn. And when Wynn gets on base, you have to take him into account. So maybe he sees a few more fastballs. He can cover the fastballs, and now he has no fear of the breaking ball, where he knows he can handle it. And he's been fun to watch, and he's carrying his team right now. The top three guys in the order: Wynn, Burleson, Contreras, right now have been the difference makers for this team so far.
Yeah, it's figuring out what to do after that at this point. I mean, Brendan Donovan does not seem like an intimidating cleanup hitter,
Yeah,
and
you
he
know
was
what?
there yesterday. I don't know what else you do though. I mean, moving Goldschmidt down to 7, I think had to be eye opening for a veteran
No,
like him to
this had been discussed before,
yeah.
so it was more on him. Not want to hurt the team and just feel like maybe if he was down further in the order to really kind of break up that lefty line they had in the back end of the batting order, really was one of the reasons why they did it. So again, this is not something that Ollie fell out of bed Sunday morning and said, we're going to do this. This has been something that's been discussed. They both discussed it. This was not a one-sided discussion, out of respect. And, he accepted it because he knows he has to be better. I mean, you think about he and Gorman, where they have 250 strikeouts between the two of them. I think they're 1-2 right now, or 1-3 in the National League or in baseball in strikeouts.
Yeah, and so last week I talked to Stephen Kwan at the All-Star game about
One
that.
of my
About
favorite hitters to
yeah,
watch.
we
Gosh,
talked
he's
about that,
good.
and the one thing I brought up, I don't know if you saw this. So first half exit velocity. You know who had the 2 lowest exit velocities in all of baseball first half of the season?
Uh, uh, Him
Steve Stephen
and old guy
Arise.
was, yeah.
Yeah, Luis Arise and Stephen Kwan.
And,
So
and they'll be accused, well, they're just singles hitters. Okay, singles work.
they're leadoff hitters. They're getting on
Yeah,
base.
exactly, getting on base. And
Yeah.
so they both have good speed. Quan, I like Quan from the first day I saw him. He first broke in. Remember, he had that consecutive hit streak going
Yep.
for a while. He just does all the things right, man. And I think if he was in another market other than Cleveland, we'd be talking about him a lot more.
Right. And yeah, we talked about that 2-strike approach and how he just doesn't want to strike out. He knows that
Yeah.
he needs to get on base, and he can't do that by swinging and missing. Cardinals, these next 2 days, we don't know who's pitching on Wednesday for either side. Mitch Keller tonight, Paul Skeens tomorrow. Talk about strikeouts. There's
That's
going to
some
be a
hand. You
lot.
got your
There's going
hands
to be a
full.
lot.
Yeah, you got your hands full with these two. Although the Cardinals have done okay against Keller.
They have.
The challenge now is in the game of baseball is get to the pen, get to the bullpen. And Pittsburgh has a pretty good one. Now, the question is how much usage have they had leading up into and including is where the game now goes. If you can get to somebody's pen and knowing who's available and who's not, that's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real game changer. And managers manage differently now because of it.
Yeah. The Pirates, they're a few
They're
games
hot,
back.
man.
They are right now a half game back of the wild card, so can't imagine they'll be sellers at the trade deadline. The Reds just got swept by the Marlins over the weekend. The Cubs are also probably sellers here at the trade deadline, so that National League Central could look a lot different.
Yeah, what do the Cubs have to sell other than Bellinger?
So the rumors have who Hendricks, but your Cubs would
Well,
have
who
to eat
wants Hendricks?
if the Cubs are willing to eat a lot of that contract, then maybe somebody.
Well, he
Justin
doesn't have
Steele,
much. He doesn't have much left on him because he's unrestricted after this year.
yeah,
So you're
but
just paying
still
a
somebody would
portion
have
for
to
this season.
right. Justin Steele is a name that's being thrown out there too.
I don't think he's going anywhere because between he and the other young man they brought over from Japan,
Shoto and
yeah,
Amaniga, yeah,
I think he want to hold on to those two.
right.
I just don't see anybody else that would garner that kind of interest. You're not going to trade the middle of your infield,
No,
and if you move Bellinger, Crow Smith's going to play out in Armstrong, P. Armstrong Crow or whatever his name is.
Pete Crow Armstrong.
P. Crow Armstrong.
Yeah.
He's going to be center fielder. I don't see anybody else that really would garner that sort of interest. So, there's some teams that are going to be out of it, and they may be able to move some players, but I'm not sure those players are going to be that impactful when they go somewhere else.
Right. Outside of the Reds too, they got the one starter. But outside of, I don't know what Jonathan India probably would be an attractive name.
Yeah, they remember at one point they didn't know if they had a position for him.
Right.
So he might be an interesting guy. yeah, they got a couple of guys in the bullpen I might kick the tires on, but I just think there's a lot of teams, the ones that are out of it don't have anything that's really glowingly attractive that you want to go out and say, oh, yeah, this guy here, he's a difference maker.
Before we wrap up any baseball conversation, Hall of Fame was this weekend. You had a handful of guys go in to the Hall of Fame: Helton, Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Jim Leland. I know most of those guys. Beltre had a lot of time with the Rangers, Red Sox, Mariners, so a lot of time in the American League. We didn't see much of him here in St. Louis. Same with Mauer. Either, but Todd Helton would have had a lot of games against the Cardinals, and Jim Leland probably had a lot of, outside of the 2006 World Series, Pirates Cardinals back in the 80s too in the 90s was a big rivalry.
I didn't have a problem with any of the candidates that went in. I saw Beltre when he was with the Dodgers. He was a good player then. And it's funny. I remember when we won the World Series in 2011, he and I sat at Mike Shannon's. They had a big party, and he and his family were there, and he and I had a mutual associate, and we sat there and talked for 20 minutes. And one of the more delightful people you'll meet, a good teammate, and man, he could flat out hit. He was definitely a Hall of Famer. But who's up next year?
Ichiro's up next year. That's the big name.
So he'll go in.
Yeah.
Who else?
The list of names for next year. I saw it earlier. CC Sabathia on that list.
Not first time.
No.
Andrew Jones has got to be on that list.
Carlos Beltran also on that list.
He came close
last year.
Yeah.
A guy like Billy Wagner.
Billy Wagner should be in.
Outside of the other first time, I'm not sure who else on that list is for that would be up there. But I mean, Ichiro's a lock. Ichiro, that's one of those where he should get 100%.
So there'll be somebody who will try and make a name for themselves,
right?
By not doing it. But exactly. I agree. He's a lock. I agree.
Yeah. So that's coming. Do you think they need to change how they're doing the Hall? I mean, it needs to be separate than when games are going on, right? MLB Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame.
It's always been that way.
I know.
And that doesn't make it right.
Right.
You almost want to do it maybe All-Star Weekend. That's Sunday.
In Cooperstown or at the host side of the
Well, you have to do it in Cooperstown.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, you think about it, we played 90-something games before the All-Star break came about. So the schedule is already skewed.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a time they can step back and figure out something that would make it more worthy.
That or November.
Maybe have
November when there's no baseball.
Maybe have it. Well, the other sports do it in the off seasons.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have a problem with that.
All right, we need to take a break. When we come back, a lot of Olympic talk, a lot of basketball talk. We will get all of that out of the way.
NFL training camps are underway.
I saw that they started. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes already doing some special things in training camp too. So we will talk about all that when we come back here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe. We're powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura.
Munganess St. Louis Acura is making room for the 2025 MDX. So that means great.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
Munganess St. Louis Acura is making room for the 2025 MDX, so that means great deals for you on the 2024 MDX. We have over 100 2024 MDX models in stock, and you get financing as low as 3.9% for up to 60 months. Or you can lease a new MDX for just $559 per month for 36 months. Or get the MDX technology model for just $589 per month for 36 months. Munganess St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.
Back here, lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura. Also, Claibs, sponsored by the Missouri Athletic Club.
Missouri Athletic Club has a lot of fun things going on these days. They always have some sort of meetings or luncheons that involve different subjects, great conversations, history conversations, a lot of family events that take place at this time of the year, especially at the West Campus. They have a great pool. They have a great opportunities for kids to do a lot of things. But if you're thinking about a corporate function or maybe some meetings or maybe just having a great dinner, I mean, they have so many things to offer, not to mention multiple golf courses that you can play on around the area. I would go online and just check them out firsthand. And once you see all the amenities that are available to you, you'll know why everybody thinks that the MAC is one of the best places to be in town.
Claibs, we have the Olympics starting up this Friday night in Paris. A few things have already kind of started, prelims for a few events out there already. The athletes have been out there for a while, but the basketball team, the men's basketball team, wrapped up their prelim games or their exhibition games, almost losing to Sudan over the weekend. This is a team that's built to go out there and beat everybody by 30, 40 points.
That's not the case anymore.
No.
No.
I mean, there are other countries that have caught up, but still, they thought they put together one of the greatest team that they've had in a while.
Well, it is a great team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And they have a great coach. I think the engagement of the competition can sometimes be a letdown. Sudan was ready for them, made it very interesting. I think they're going to have a tough road to hoe because the world is caught up to the USA when it comes to basketball. And as I was saying to you before we went on, I think Team Canada will give the U.S. all they can handle.
I haven't looked at that roster yet.
Look at their roster. They got a bunch of NBA guys on there that can all flat out play and they can guard. So this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch this thing unfold. And then you have the European teams that are going to be good as well. Puerto Rico is going to be pretty good. So there's a lot of different countries that have really stepped up their game in basketball. And maybe we can take a page out of how they develop players because our developmental situation, I think, is flawed. And we got to figure it out. We better figure it out soon because if not, somebody else is going to be there with the gold medal. But it's going to be some good basketball. And I think when you look at the other teams, swimming is going to be solid. Track and field is going to be very good. And those are the sport and the gymnastics team. They're going to have their hands full, but they have some young players, young participants. But the TV sports that we're accustomed to seeing, I think the U.S. is going to bode well.
The roster here, I'm just naming off NBA players that I'm familiar with right now. R.J. Barrett on that roster, Dylan Brooks, SGA, Jamal Murray, Kelly Olynyk. Those are just a few of the guys they have on that Team Canada roster with NBA experience.
I was surprised that Zach Edey didn't make that team.
Right.
He would have given them an option that most teams wouldn't have. But he's playing with Memphis and playing in summer league. So we wish him the best and hopefully he has a good season.
I was going to say that seems to be a case where he's probably more concerned with making sure that he earns his money with a team like Memphis and says, you know what, in 28 I'll be ready to play for Team Canada.
Yeah, good point.
So it's just a rough time of years for him. I mean, if he was still at Purdue, would he be able to play if he was still at Purdue?
Yeah, he could play.
Left?
Yeah.
Okay, then probably just a bad year for him.
It was. I mean,
just worked out. Didn't work out.
It's like when you look at Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Wrong time to be, of that age. I mean, both of them are good players, but I'll say this: neither one of them are better than anybody on that American team. I mean, I know that they won the other night, but those women on that U.S. Olympic team, now you talk about somebody that might go out and destroy some people. That bunch might be the ones because they are stacked, man. I don't care how old Tarazi is, man. But let me tell you something: they're gonna comb some hair over this thing.
You talk about the rest of the world catching up on the men's side in basketball to what the U.S. team has done. That's not the case with the in basketball yet. The rest of the world, the rest of the world hasn't caught up yet. There are not other countries producing talent like we've seen just drafted, like you mentioned, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. I guess the one that got drafted second overall, she's from Brazil, right?
Yeah.
The one that's also on Chicago. Yeah. So, all right. I mean, her and you grab 4 others from that country and make
Well,
her at it.
it's turned out some pretty good players over the years, so I wouldn't discount them too much. But this is a whole new league we're talking about now.
Do you have your scouting report ready for the women's water polo yet?
No, I haven't seen them out of the pool yet. And then once
Okay.
I get a chance to see the team photograph, I'll give you an idea of who we should be paying attention to.
All right, yeah. They start. It looks like the prelims for them looks like they have a game Saturday, July 27th.
I'll be
So-
somewhere watching.
Yeah, Saturday, 8:35 a.m. Is when that is. So I don't know what time.
I
the
think we're
Cardinals play.
playing. No, we play the Nationals that evening. So
I was
I'll
going
be
to say
able
you play the
watch that.
Nationals at some point. I'm not sure what time of
Yeah.
day it is, but you have to get up around 8:30 to
By the
turn
way,
that one on.
this weekend is going to be a fun weekend. If you're a Cardinal fan, it's kind of a reunion weekend. They're honoring the 2004 and the 64 teams. And we have the Ted Savage Golf Tournament that's going to take place right before that. So a lot of players of yesteryear are going to come in. I'm trying to pull up the list now and see if I have it close by.
I haven't seen a list come through yet of that.
It's,
So maybe, yeah.
So here's some of the names: Marlon Anderson, Rick Ankiel, Kiki Calero, Carmen Cali, Doug Clemens and Dave Downing were on the 64 team, Cal Eldred, Bo Hart, Dan Hell, Charlie James, Ray King, Steve Klein, Tony La Russa, Ray Langford, Mike Lincoln, Hector Luna, Jason Marquis, Mike Matheny, Cody McKay, Jose Oquendo, Joe Patini, great coach, Alan Reyes, Scott Rowland, Reggie Sanders, Jason Simon Tachi, Jeff Suppan, Julian Tavares, Carl Warwick, and Ray Washburn. Wow, I hadn't seen those guys in years. Woody Williams and Tony Womack.
Jason Marquis still trying to play somewhere?
I don't know if he's playing anymore. You know, he was on Team Israel there for a while, but I'm not sure if he's playing anymore.
It seemed like he was trying to hang on for as long as he could somewhere over
But
in
you know
Europe
what,
and
though?
still
He
play.
was good enough. He took good care of himself. His
Right.
stuff was good. I mean, hey, man, play as long as you can, because when it's over, it's over.
Right. If you want to keep going out there and doing that and the family's okay with it, or you're not.
That's just
you
like
know, yeah.
Jesse Chavez yesterday. He came in and pitched, and John Rooney read off all the teams he played for. And I said, "You sure you didn't play for the Boston Braves too?" I mean, this guy played everywhere.
I saw an interview last year with Chavez. I think maybe it was back in spring training this year.
It was. I know exactly the one you're talking about.
They asked him to name off every team that he played for in order, and he nailed it. He got, and that was, some of these guys' teams were twice, and he could get every single one of those in order. That was really, really impressive.
Muscle memory, I guess.
Right, just to go around and be able to remember that. So Olympics this week. I haven't looked at the full schedule of everything yet, but I am looking forward to watching the games. It does seem, I don't remember having any interest back in 21 when they had the 2020 Olympics. It just is still such a weird time to have games like that. So it does seem like we've been waiting for this for 8 years now to get summer games back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Paris is going to be an interesting place. I have some friends already there that say it's already insane. I'm not a big fan of Paris, but I understand why they have it there. But it should be a lot of fun.
Dr. Rick over there?
He will be there. You know where Dr. Rick is now? Or where he was?
I saw it and I can't remember.
The North Pole.
Oh, yeah.
So he's been to the North and South Pole.
He's been all over the place lately.
Climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He is truly an adventurer. I truly respect.
Yeah, he has been traveling just all over the place these last few weeks. Claibs, I think that's going to do it for our show today. I know, well, you got NFL training camp on the mind. It still seems like it is way too early to start talking about football, even though I think
30-something days.
I thought it was 7 Sundays away from having football.
It's 35 days away from opening day.
Yeah.
Well, when they open the season went on Tuesday this year. I mean, they keep moving the opening day.
They have the game and they have the game in Brazil.
Yeah.
And then they have I think the game in Brazil's on Friday. So I think it's is it Ravens Chiefs on Thursday, Eagles Packers on Friday, and then you go into the games on Sunday.
I'll just look at the schedule that week and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, we'll have Howard Richards back in the fold to start talking.
Huddle up with Howard just around the corner.
The new college football video game came out over the weekend. Were there guys in the clubhouse playing it over the weekend, Claibs?
No, not that I know of. I didn't pay attention to it.
Because I I did see there was there was a lot of talk about it around All-Star Week about guys looking forward to being able to play it. I know that it came out Monday. It was supposed to be released Tuesday, came out a day early. So far, 2.2 million people have logged in to play the new EA Sports college football game. First time in 11 years that college football.
So you can do that on your laptop or something?
Yeah, Xbox or PlayStation.
My God. Ain't doing all that. Nope.
I played it for about 7-8 hours on Saturday. So
I'm good.
I was very much.
I stayed away from that early on
that.
because I know I could be a bad habit for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of.
Just certain games will get me with that. So, but yeah, you got you're in Pittsburgh this week. Where do you like to go in Pittsburgh? What do you get?
We went to the Redbeard last night. It's about a block and a half away. A little sports bar. It was nice. Not sure where we go tonight. We may go to City Works, which is right across the street from the plaza we're staying near. I like Pittsburgh. I like downtown Pittsburgh.
I have not been to that stadium yet. I am
putting
that on my list
one
next year.
One of the best views in sports.
Yeah, putting that on my list next year. Cardinal schedule for 25 did come out.
Yes, and the spring training schedule will be out here soon too.
Yeah, you get to they're playing the White Sox in Chicago middle of June, so Claibs, you get another week of Chicago.
It's the only time to go. Time to go. June and July and August.
I saw that, and that's the first thing I thought of was good. June in Chicago. I'm there for it. So no random Fridays or Sundays off on the schedule next year either. So
Which is
like
a head scratcher. I don't get it, but anyway.
Yeah,
they didn't call me.
All right, Claibs, we will wrap it up. Pittsburgh this week. You got the Nationals this weekend. You talked all about the 64 and the 04 teams coming in.
And the Ted Savage Golf Tournament is on Thursday, which should be a lot of fun.
Very nice. Where's that played at?
Whitmore.
Nice. All right.
Oh, one other thing I want to pass on. Good friend of mine in the radio business, Tammy Holland, passed the other day. And I've known her from forever. And she was such a delightful person to be around. And she did radio, morning drive. She did entertainment. She was a breath of fresh air, unlike a lot of people that you run across. And we lost her too early to cancer. And I'm going to miss her. We accepted an award together last year. And I don't know who was crying more, her or me, because we started talking about each other. But she was just such a fun person to be around. And I just didn't want let another day pass without me saying something about how much she's going to be missed locally and probably all over the world because she touched people everywhere.
Very well said. That's going to wrap up our show for today. He is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. We have been powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, right here on Claibs Online.
Nobody wants a surprise in their jelly donut. That's because the middle is the most important part. At Gray Bar, we're at the middle of electrical and datacom jobs across the country, connecting installers, facility managers, and business owners with smart solutions for their most challenging projects, which means stocking and delivering crucial products on time and on budget, with no surprises, thanks to our nationwide logistics network. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Who's this?